You can't just change your life. You change your habits, and your habits change your life. So if you want to be an actor, an artist, or anything, what are you doing each and every day when it's not really necessary to prepare for that opportunity?
Hey everyone, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Creative Table. With us today, we have the one and only Kelly Collins-Lentz. She's a good friend of ours and she's a very successful actress and has a lot to say about the topic. So if you're in the business of acting, want to get into it or otherwise, pay attention. Let's jump into it. Kelly, thank you.
I don't know that I've ever been called a very successful actress.
Well, you know, I gotta help me.
I'm more
cut line. No.
I would like to tout myself as a solid working class actress.
Yes, there you go. Working being the key word for all of you starving actors.
Yes. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, backstory. Tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into acting? What drew you to it? What kind of work have you done? Are you even a real actress? Are you acting right now?
I'm right. Exactly.
Yeah.
First of all, I've been married for 27 years to my husband, Mark, which for an actor, that's like...
Yeah, you're like a four-leaf clover over here.
I have 4 children, ranging in age from 23 down to 15, and they were all child actors, professional child actors. Well, one has escaped.
Okay,
one has escaped the fold and is now in law school.
Okay.
She's the only one I'm not worried about. And I guess I'm a writer, I'm an actress, and I'm an entrepreneur. So that sort of sums me up. But before all of that, I was definitely an actor. I actually decided very young. I was one of those people that knew from a very young age what I wanted to do. I was in a church play when I was 4. And I don't know what I said. I don't remember what the line was, but it must have been funny because the entire audience like erupted into this just amazing laughter.
Is this like your first memory? You're sharing it right here today?
It is. I was born on a dark and stormy night in 1970. And then there was a church play. And I knew even then that this is a good thing that's happening. And I honestly say that I've spent my life trying to recreate that one moment over and over and over again. And so I grew up, you know, I was like Leah Michelle on Glee before there was Leah Michelle on Glee. Like I was the kid that was like tap dance class, ballet, voice lessons, high school theater, community theater, and ended up going to Penn State to study performance. And from there, got a contract with the Orlando Shakespeare Festival after college. And that is when I never really saw myself doing film and television. I always saw myself on stage because of that immediate connection that you get with the audience was what I loved. And but when I moved to Orlando and I was working with this theater company, all the actors like kept leaving rehearsal to go to auditions. And I was like, what are you auditioning for? Like, do they need another Mickey or what, you know? And it turns out that Central Florida is the commercial capital of the world because it's warm there year round. So all these advertising agencies would come down there to shoot. Yeah. And because no one ever says when they leave drama school, all right, it's time to make it big. I'm headed to Orlando.
Yeah.
The talent pool is relatively small.
Okay.
So if you can like walk and chew gum at the same time, you can get yourself an agent and start working in commercials, which is what I did.
In Orlando.
And I had never, that's why one of my biggest pieces of advice for new actors is don't...
Go to Orlando. No.
Go to Orlando.
Learn how to do the Mickey impression.
Don't pick up and move to New York or Los Angeles because you will get eaten alive very quickly. Go to a regional market where you can begin a career by playing some smaller roles in some bigger projects. And so that's what I began to do in Florida. I stayed there for 10 years. I was what I would like to say the commercial queen of the universe. Up for debate.
Okay.
But I made a really good living doing that for a long time. And then when I moved to Atlanta in 2002 is when I really started to get more work in film and television series because that was right at the very beginning of when Atlanta started to become what it is today.
I was thinking that, yeah, you were just perfect timing.
Perfect timing. I was on the ground floor of that. And it's so funny because all of my friends from drama school, none of them are still acting. They all did the whole move to New York thing, having no foundation in place. And it is a difficult...
Are they like the manager of Starbucks now, or they kind of stayed there?
They could be dead. I don't know. And they would call me and be like, did I just see you on an episode of One Tree Hill? And I'm like, yes, you did. They're like, we can't even get an agent. We can't even get an audition.
Yeah.
And I was like, regional market. So that's a...
So, okay, regional market, when you say that, what does that cover? Because I don't know. I'm wide open here on this. So
there are, aside from New York and Los Angeles, which is what everybody thinks of when they're like, I want to be an actor, I guess I have to go to one of those two places. Yep. Atlanta is now a huge hub of film and television production. Mm-hmm. You have something, last year I think there was over 100 projects shot here. You have Tyler Perry Studios here. You have Pinewood, which is where Marvel does all of their movies.
But does the region cover Atlanta and Florida, or is Florida its own region?
Well, you have the Atlanta market. Wilmington, North Carolina used to be a huge spot. That's where Dawson's Creek was shot. That's where One Tree Hill was shot.
Yep.
Lots and lots of movies. My daughter starred on a television show that shot there for 3 years called Under the Dome. New Orleans is another big one.
Okay.
Texas is another big one. Chicago. Okay. So it's markets where these people go to film. And now in Georgia, there are some really great tax incentives. Yeah. So that's why you're seeing...
I feel like other states are starting to copy that model too, right?
Sure.
To kind of...
Okay. Yeah, well, Wilmington, North Carolina used to have them.
Yeah.
Then they got rid of them, and that's when everything moved to Atlanta.
Aha.
So that was... Because I used to have to drive to Wilmington all the time just to audition.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's a whole other story. What I used to have to go through just to get my face seen by these people. It was a lot of travel, a lot of driving, because that was in the days before technology allowed you to self-tape auditions and just send them off with a link. You used to have to actually physically get in your car and go there, and then 2 days later go back for a callback. So
yeah, technology's changed that whole game.
Yeah.
Backing up a step. Okay, someone wants to get into acting. You mentioned you went to Penn State. And then there's also this this mention of Shakespeare. It seems, do you have any recommendation or opinions on what schools are best to look at that would maybe go against the grain or be less, people maybe didn't think of it this way because maybe they're also thinking, I got to go to NYU or I got to go, those typical examples. Do you have any opinions on school? And also, do you have to have, or is it best to have a theater background, like to succeed? No,
that's the thing. Like, my son is a professional child actor, and has been since he was 4. And so was my daughter. They both they did not get degrees in acting. Like, never in my life have I walked into an audition and they have said, you're not quite right. And then I whip out my diploma, but I have a theater degree from Penn State.
Or what school did you go to?
Because it's never helped me one time. And a lot of parents don't like to hear that. They'll say, well, what school should they go to study acting? And I'm like, none. Like, if they're going to go to college, get a degree in something else, because their degree in performance will not really help them. It'll give them some experience, but it will not. It will not really help or hurt. You're either good or you're not, and you either look right or you don't.
So what does help in terms of the? Let's assume the looks are right. So what do you go?
Training.
So you're training. You recommend training. Then how?
Well, you can go to some acting. It depends on if you want to be on film or television, or if you want to be on stage. Those are 2 different languages.
Okay.
So when you're on stage, I've got to project the back of the house. Right. But when
you're wearing one of those fancy hidden microphones in your hair, and maybe the speakers are
even then, still, it's a different acting style than if a camera is 2 inches away from my face.
Right.
Because if I behaved the way that I would on stage, and the camera's
you
right
get that,
here,
Andy?
That would be ridiculous.
Got it. Okay.
So I had to really learn. In fact, when I first started auditioning for film and television, one time I had to drive to Jacksonville, and it was my very first audition for a television show called Point Man, and there was a casting director named Len Hunt.
Okay.
Len Hunt was from England. He was Simon Cowell before there was Simon Cowell. Okay.
Yep.
I drive up there 3.5 hours away. I'm all excited. I'm all prepared. I go in and I start doing, I think I was auditioning to be a waitress in some beachside bar.
Yeah.
And I start going, and all of a sudden he's like, no, stop. And I'm like, yes. And he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, acting. And he's like, no, you're far too big. You need to bring it down. The camera's right here. And I'm like, okay. Go again. No. Stop me 3 times. And he was like, what in God's name are you doing with your eyebrows? And I'm like, I don't know. And he basically told me not to come back until I had gone home and fixed my face.
Okay. Wow.
So I get in the car and I call my agent, and I'm just like, and then he told me to fix my face, and I hated him, and right. I wished evil scorpions upon him.
Right. Yeah.
But what do you think I did when I went home?
Got out the mirror and started working on your eyebrow.
I fixed my freaking face.
Yeah.
Okay. I went and I realized I started going to a class where you would watch yourself back on camera, and I realized my eyebrows were moving like crazy. I was doing all this extra stuff that I didn't need to do that wasn't real or grounded in reality.
Yeah.
Once I took that class, I started booking work right away. And so I hated Len Hunt, but I also credit Len Hunt for anything I've achieved. Because if I had not taken his advice and just been like, well, he's stupid.
I can totally sing. Simon doesn't know what he's talking about.
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
Who knows? So you have to be able to take constructive criticism without being a whining pansy.
Mm-hmm. Even if the criticism is coming at you loud and hard, yeah.
Yeah, and it does frequently. So that's one story of, that was a fail forward moment in my life of like, that was a disaster. And yet.
So a lot of people, when they start out, they think, oh, I'm just going to move here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to take this class. I'm going to fix my face, whatever it is. And I'm just going to, and eventually within this amount of time, I'm going to be rocking and rolling. Like, is there a point where as an actress, you realize, okay, I got to do something else, or I've made it, or like you talk about this spirit of perseverance, and because you're going to face all this, it's an uphill battle, a sense of rejection, etc.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you,
there's a lie about all of it that I think is pervasive throughout the career as a whole, that kind of pulls people in, and they're after this affirmation, or they're after this sense of fame, and yet there's going to be all this hard work and rejection and so forth. And I mean,
well, to lay the groundwork on that, I mean, I basically grew up thinking that whether it was consciously or unconsciously, if I achieve fame, that will equal happiness and satisfaction. And that was really my only goal. And so when I go for, I'm a 3 on the Enneagram, Kevin. So when I want something, I will go after it. And then that was passed on to my children too. And so we began to achieve quite a bit, especially my children, who have all been series regulars on television shows like Under the Dome and The Alienist and Bosch and a little known zombie show called The Walking Dead. Three of my kids have played prominent roles on that show, and we've worked with people like Adam Sandler and Matthew McConaughey and Jennifer Garner and Peter Dinklage and more, Dakota Fanning, Luke Evans, you name it. And I can honestly tell you that the further we've gone down the path, the more it's fraught with dissatisfaction and fear and anxiety. And mental unrest, the more notoriety my children gained, the more it opened them up to so much. And, you know, I find Hollywood to be a very emotionally abusive environment to be in. And a lot of times we mistake perseverance for emotional abuse. You know? And so I put my kids through a lot. And I say I put my kids through a lot. They wanted to be put through it. They had the same goals and dreams that I did. But there were times where I'm like, am I teaching you perseverance here, or am I just abusing you? Because
am I being Joe Jackson right now, or am I? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And we always told them, whenever you want out, say the word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's harder to leave than you think, because what happens
kind of like The Firm.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, I liken it to an abusive spouse. Like, he gives you pearls one day and then beats the crap out of you the next. And you never know why. And what you did yesterday to get the pearls won't work today.
Okay.
And you never know how to repeat that.
And you get the pearls and you realize they're not even that nice.
They're not even that great.
Right.
Yeah. He got them at Kohl's. You know, so...
It's like,
not allowed to say
this
that.
episode is brought to you by Kohl's.
By Kohl's. And they're abusive pearls.
Yes.
So, you know, you just never know. Like, you know, it takes, you know, I'm not even talking about the rejection of having to do 50 auditions to get one job, which is about the average, and then you're hot. That's one part of it. But there's stuff like, you know, when Madison, me having to tell my daughter Madison that she was going to be killed off The Walking Dead. That was not a good day in the Lentz household. I mean, I got that news when I was out driving around, and rather than go home and tell her, I went to Target and bought $300 worth of kitchen linens, you know, like just trying to figure out, how am I going to break this news to her?
I thought you were going to say $300 worth of toys or something, but
no, it was all for me.
Yeah.
And then, you know, so that, and that actually, that show broke 3 of my children's hearts.
Okay.
Because all 3 of my kids.
I feel like it broke everyone's hearts eventually.
Eventually, you can't escape.
Right.
Unless you're Carol or Daryl. Anyway, so those moments, I think, are a lot of times, you know, and I have a lot of parents that come to me and they're like, okay, what do I do? How do I get my kid into this? And my first question is, are you sure you want to? Because there's so much that goes along with it that a lot of parents don't anticipate. Things like having to repeatedly break your child's heart. Nope, you didn't get that one. Nope, I know you got close. There was 2-year period where my son Matt screen tested 9 times for 9 lead roles in major motion pictures. And to give you an idea of what it takes to even get to the screen test phase, you've already been through probably 3 or 4 rounds of, you know, auditions and callbacks to get down to being that final
and
2
months
or 3.
Of time going.
And sometimes it's very quick, but sometimes, sure, it can be a month or 2. And by then, you're invested. Your kid is invested. There's a lot of prayer going on. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of negotiating with the Lord.
Yeah.
And then to have to go and say, they're going a different direction. Didn't go your way. And here's the thing with this industry too, is if that's not happening to you, if you're not repeatedly getting to that phase and getting rejected, you're not even in the game. So it's a badge of honor to screen
Just to
test
get
9 times in an 18-month period and get rejected that much. And then the 10th time finally is when he did get the yes. It was his turn. But then we ended up in Budapest, Hungary for 6 months. And that brought a whole new set
And
of...
you don't even know that's part of the deal.
No, you do.
You do.
You
Okay,
did. You
okay.
did. You did know that.
At least that, like, guess what? That location we weren't able to tell you about, but now you're contracted. We can tell you.
No,
It's Budapest.
Well, when it's on the audition breakdown in theory that it could I guess we could go to Budapest, sure.
It's either going to be Orlando or Budapest.
And then
It's one
you're
of them.
like buying luggage to go overseas for 6 months. It's a different story. And so, and then that brings up the whole question of, okay, if you're a parent and your child, that happens to them, you have to go with them. So if you have a job at home, oh well,
Hope
bye-bye.
it's, telecommute.
Yeah, no, I mean, and most of the time it's not.
Yeah.
And so one of you will have to give up your career. In our case, it was both of us because we had 4 child actors. Our record, I think, is we had 5 of us working on 4 different sets in one day.
Wow.
And so if he's in Los Angeles with Madison working on the set of Bosch, and I'm in Budapest, Hungary working on the set of The Alienist with Matt, who exactly is at home paying the mortgage? And how?
And where are your other 2 kids at?
And who's taking care of them? Exactly.
Yeah.
Actually, who did take care of them? No, but
Yeah.
there's so we ran into a lot of people think, oh, you're an actor, you're a series regular, you're rich. No, I mean maybe the kids have a lot of money, but the parents that are taking care of them, like what are we doing? So that became a big problem, and I was still working as an actress, but. Really only 6% of all actors make a living at acting anyway. And so if you want to be an actor, you've got to have other streams of income to get you through those dry spells. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're just dumb.
There you go. Okay. We've got multiple streams of income. We've got, I almost want to back up and go just for the sake, because I think it's a really cool story. Tell us about, the Spider-Man audition, just because that's so sneaking cool. But her son was going to be Spider-Man. This close.
Well, there's many people that got this close to many things.
Yes.
That was in that 2-year period where he had nine screen tests for 9 very, very prominent projects. And he was working on a movie with Matthew McConaughey in New Orleans called The Free State of Jones. Mm-hmm. And he got an audition for the role of Peter Parker. And we were like, what? Here at the time.
And this is like 2014, 15 probably?
Yeah, he was 13 years old. So that would have been actually 2012.
Oh, yeah, really ahead then.
Well, no, let's see. Wait, he was born in 2001, 2014. Yeah, 2014. And so we sent, and he was so young, he was so little. I had never seen a Spider-Man that little.
Yeah.
And so
Sony's like, we want him young, but maybe not that young.
Well, they were exploring the whole idea of taking it back to, when he was
late
a freshman
middle school,
in high school.
freshman high school,
right.
yeah.
So we were like, well, all right, this will be fun, but nothing's going to come of this. And I think they saw 1,800 boys initially for the role. And he kept getting farther, and he kept getting farther. And finally, he was invited to screen test. And so he was in the final 6.
With RDJ?
With Robert Downey Jr. Got to spend 6 hours actually working on the set, because they filmed a scene on the actual set of Captain America Civil War, which is where that character was introduced. And we did a lot of praying that day, because there was a lot of waiting. And you're with the other 5 finalists in trailers that face each other, and everyone's just like eyeing each other. Uh-huh. And you have the 3 Brits. You had Asa Butterfield, Charlie Rowe, and Tom Holland that all knew each other because they're all Brits. So they were over there chatting away, and then there was Matt and one other little guy that was 13 or 14 named Judah Lewis, and then Charlie Plummer. And they just were looking over at Matt like, what is this kid doing here?
Yeah.
And he did make it to the final 3, and then the role went to Tom Holland. And so that was another moment that I had to literally say. Not many parents can say, I'm so sorry, but you're not going to be Spider-Man. That's just not really a sentence that comes out of most parents' mouths. And yet I had to deliver it.
Yeah.
And
then there's the whole money aspect of that, right?
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
you've got Marvel here going, oh, if your son does become Spider-Man, it's going to be this multi-series contract here. And
when you screen test, you negotiate your contract ahead of time so that you know how much you stand to make or lose. We talked really quietly for the next 2 days in the house after that. But, we truly do believe in our household that any no that we get is either God protecting us from something bad or preserving us for something better. And in hindsight, we all can categorically say that we're glad he didn't get that role. He was very young. He would not have been ready for that sort of worldwide notoriety.
Yeah.
And just even because it did come out in the press who the final 6 were.
Yeah.
So people found him on Instagram. And the things that people said to my little 14-year-old, like, you would be the worst Spider-Man ever. Or who's going to change your diaper on set?
Yeah.
And when he didn't get the role, people direct messaging him saying, best day ever. Because if you would have gotten this role, I would have killed myself.
It's insane, man.
And
People are crazy.
You have to laugh, but
yeah,
we've had a lot of wonderful fans and a lot of wonderful people say wonderful supportive things to us, but you cannot imagine how much of the opposite is also true. We laugh and we let it roll off, but it can't not affect you somehow.
Yeah.
People, and of course, with all
it's almost like where you need like a social media manager to filter that stuff before it gets to your kids' eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
And the Walking Dead fans are some of the most passionate and opinionated fans on the planet. And I think sometimes, and there's so many of them that are wonderful. We meet them all over the world and love them dearly. But there are some people, too, that I feel like forget that, you're talking about a real live human being that could be sitting here trying to do his math homework and is reading that you think he's the worst actor that you've ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like learning
it's
to
stuff
deal
that
with
most people could never say to another person's face, but these trolls show up and say it from behind this security of this screen.
Yeah. And I read a bunch of stuff about my younger son, Maxon, because on The Walking Dead, my younger son, Maxon, originated the role of Henry. And then they time jumped 5 years, and his older brother, Matt, took over the role.
Ah, okay.
But when Maxon was 11 and 12 is when he worked on the show. And of course, young kids nowadays, they just find their way onto lots of different places on the internet. And so one day he just casually announced, like, oh yeah, people hate me. And we were like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean? Where are you seeing that? They're like, oh yeah, they hate the character of Henry. And I'm like, are you okay? Like, do we need some emotional triage here? And he's like, Mom, I just laugh. Who cares? They don't know the real me.
That's
like
right.
he has always had, ironically, our youngest has always had the most balanced emotional perspective about this industry out of all of us. It's so weird.
Sounds like he needs to teach his own little master class about emotional health and
how not to become a crack addicted depressive.
Yes, exactly.
With Max and Lintz.
So okay, I want to get down a little bit of brass tacks. I'm listening to all this. It sounds amazing. Someone's watching. They want to be an actor or actress. I know to get started, you got to have an agent. You got to know where to go and where to get. I mean, how do you? Just give me the quick overview of how do you get set up to get started? I mean, you mentioned regional markets, so there's that piece. But I imagine you wouldn't just go there unless you had a couple other things in place or...
Yeah, and like, I think Orlando back in the 90s was a great backdoor into the industry, meaning that you could get an agent's attention pretty easily if you had a decent look. And I think that was one time when, she's got a degree in acting. Even though I will tell you that I learned more in my first 2 seasons of repertory theater, professional theater, than I did in 4 years of drama school. Just something clicked, when you're working with other professionals. And Atlanta used to be a great back door. It's kind of becoming a front door now, though.
Yeah.
It really is. And so it's hard. It's hard. And so I would tell somebody, if they were just starting out, first of all, what I would tell people is if you have a child that wants to do this and they know they want to do this when they're adult, that it is very wise to begin them now.
Okay.
Because here's what happens to kids.
Earlier the better, that kind of thing?
Yeah, because it's hard to find decent young child actors. So if your child does have any talent, get them some credits on their resume now so that when maybe they do go to Los Angeles at 18, and there's a lot of people that go to Los Angeles at 18, they have no credits, they really have no connections or any kind of network. And the agents out there are like, you're 18. Why would I take you when I have these kids that have been out here working since they were 6, 7, 8 years old that have all of these credits, you know? Mm-hmm. So it's better to at least try to, and I'm not saying you have to sell your soul and pick up and move. That's not what I'm saying at all. We've never done that, by the way. We've always stayed in Georgia as our base. Okay. We've spent a lot of time in Los Angeles. Like we would go out there for something called pilot season, which is when all of the new shows are...
Is that an annual thing?
Yeah, it's an annual thing, like between January and March or so, where they cast all of the pilots, and then the networks decide which ones they're going to pick up.
You say they. Who's they?
The
like
networks.
Fox or
sure,
ABC,
ABC, yeah. But now all the streaming networks. And there used to be a very definite pilot season.
Yeah.
Now, with all of the streaming... It's more of a year-round thing. It's not so, but there still is, I would say, a concentrated time in the spring, except for in 2020 when nobody did anything.
Right.
So
let's just pretend 2020 never happened. Okay.
Please. So
you got to get an agent.
Yes.
That's the thing. You got to have an agent.
You do.
How do you get an agent?
There's any number of ways.
I mean, I imagine there's all kinds of hucksters out there. You probably don't want to just roll with anyone.
Yeah, and you know what? Probably the best way for people to get this particular piece of information is I created an online course called the Parents Ultimate Crash Course to getting your kids into the biz.
And even if you're not a parent, just somebody who's 18
you can use it on
take
yourself.
It. Right,
You can use the information on yourself if you're an adult.
Okay, so tell me the name again.
The Parents Ultimate Crash Course to getting your kids into the biz. So basically what I do in that is I really create a roadmap that takes you from your child or yourself in the living room going, Mom, I want to be on TV, to actually sitting on a set with them as they do so. Okay. And a lot of people get a lot of the steps backward, right? There's a lot of people that are like, well, I need to get them a social media presence. No, you don't. Well, I need to get them an agent. Not before they know what they're doing. So you need to get them into an on-camera acting class first to make sure that they have some skill set, because you're asking people to pay your children actual dollars to do this. So if they have no experience, they have no frame of reference, they don't even know how to hit a mark or how to memorize lines or anything, that's a big ask, Now, I'm not going to say that there aren't little kids that, like, for example, my neighbor kid, I had a casting director call me and he's like, I'm looking for a little boy with like white blonde hair that's about 4. Who do you have? Or who do you know? And I literally looked across the street at my little neighbor, Alex Elder, and I'm like, I got one for you. And we put him on tape. I taught him a few quick things, put him on tape, and he got the job.
What? Wow.
So that can happen.
Yeah.
But that's not normal.
Okay.
So you need to get them some skills first. They need to know how to be able to sound like they're delivering dialogue without it being read. Mm-hmm. They need to know how to... And kids are actually pretty good at that. They're better than adults at that. They don't even know how to... They know how to play pretend really well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point.
But there are certain things that you can hone. So that's what I would do first, and get them into a great studio in your regional market. And from that point, they can tell you who the reputable agents are. But one quick thing I can tell you here is if anyone asks you for money, that's when you run.
In terms of an agent?
Sure.
Okay.
If they say, sure, well, here, pay us $1,000 and we'll get your pictures done and we'll put you in our little website, That's not how it's done. That's illegitimate. So,
okay, that's good to know.
the way you get paid is an agent. If you get a job, they get 10% of what you make.
Okay, and that's a going like standard rate. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, it is not more than 10%. It is 10%. So if they're asking for more than that, that's also wrong.
Or less than that, then they really don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, nobody asked for less, but yeah. So they get you the auditions. You can't just walk into an audition for a Disney show.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So that's how you would begin, is get into a great class. A lot of times those classes at the end will do what's called a workshop, and agents will come and watch. And if they like what they see,
it's like baseball. They got the scouts in the audience, in the stands.
Exactly. And then some agencies do open calls that you can go to. Mm-hmm. A lot of times you can get a manager. A manager is somebody that is connected to all the agents.
Oh, okay.
But they get another 10%.
Okay. Well, yeah. I guess, yeah.
So not everybody needs a manager in a regional market. A manager is more somebody that assembles your whole team and guides your career. An agent is more your marketer.
Almost like a lawyer. Okay.
Sure. Yeah. Although we also have a lawyer. Because
the agent negotiates the contracts and stuff for you with the studios.
But you also can have a lawyer do that.
Okay.
But like for example, we had a lawyer when Matt tested for Spider-Man because there were all sorts of residual deals that could possibly happen, merchandising, action figures, stuff like that.
Yeah.
That you have to think about.
Bed sheets,
right?
socks.
Exactly. So we did have a lawyer for that, but yeah, most people just need an agent, and it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, so that would be how you would start, and then you would just really, I guess the first step is get good. Get good at what you're doing.
Yeah.
And don't just think because your kid is cute
they need to be on TV.
That they, first of all, and I'm going to go back a step before that. Make sure it's your kid that wants to do it and not you that wants them to do it.
Bingo.
And believe me, there is so much of that you can't even imagine. Yeah. I've spent many an hour coaching child actors. Mm-hmm. And the number of times where I'll say to a child, "You're not having fun, are you?" And they'll say, "No, but my mom really wants me to do this." It's
a little heartbreaking.
Shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking.
I wonder that too about my own daughter sometimes, because I was like, do you want to be an actress because daddy's in film? Or do you just really, or do you want to be, learn how to do editing because I know there's some element of like, kids want to connect with their parents and their interests,
sure, yeah.
So it's interesting. I wonder the best way we've obviously just found is to just put them out there and no pressure and see what happens. And it's kind of like, go play soccer, go, acting can be like another activity like that.
And I think a lot of parents do that because, once again, getting back to that whole fame equals happiness, they think they're doing their child a favor. Mm-hmm. They think they're doing something good for their child, but let's just carry it out to the nth degree. Let's say that you do get your child into this and a lightning strike occurs and they end up the star of a Disney show or something. And you have now given them a pair of golden handcuffs. Because once you're the star of a Disney show, you're pretty much locked into that life. How do you then go work in a cubicle from 9 to 5?
Right. Mm-hmm.
No kid's going to want to do that. And I see many child stars that don't grow as artists, and so they stop working, but there really is no other viable way for them to make a living. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and because we've experienced it ourselves, like, even if they're okay with it, the world isn't okay with it. Mm-hmm. So, for example, when my oldest daughter, she finished her time on Under the Dome, did a couple other movies, moved to Los Angeles for a year, and decided, this is just not the life I want. It's too financially unstable. She was watching her bank account go down and down and down.
Yeah.
Didn't like that. didn't like the lifestyle out there, did not like the people in the industry.
Yeah,
and was like, I don't want to do this. Mm-hmm. Came home and went back to college and graduated magna cum laude. And everybody was like, oh, that's great. Congratulations. But are you doing any other movies? When's your next project? It was like
your values all in that. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it was like things that we would normally really celebrate in any other kid. For a child actor, oh, you failed, so you had to go to your B plan.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's also true in some cases with adults, right? I mean, if you get
100%.
Yeah. So
look at what happened to the guy on I can't remember his name. The guy that was on the Cosby Show, and they shot pictures of him working at Trader Joe's.
Yes, I forget who you're talking about, or his name as well, but I know who you're talking about.
And he was absolutely ridiculed and like, oh, you're a failure. Well, that guy is a very prolific character actor. Works all the time.
Yeah,
but lives in Los Angeles for one, which is like triple the cost of living out there.
Sure. Yeah.
And he had a family to support. And he was having a dry spell.
Doing the honorable thing.
And so he went to work at Trader Joe's.
Take care of his family, yeah.
Not allowed. Can't do that. You're a failure.
You know who comes to mind, funny enough, side note, is like Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Like, where'd he go? And Josh Hartnett, who like both ejected from acting and, I don't know, went silent for a while. I don't know what they're doing. But it came to mind because of what you mentioned about the golden handcuffs. I feel like there's some exceptions to those child actors that wake up and realize, like, this is not healthy. I'm going to take a sabbatical over here for a bit, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's happened a lot. I mean, a lot of people do it. It's just, but every one of them will talk to you about the stigma of it. Mm-hmm. The other guy I always think about is the guy that played Jake in 16 Candles. He left the industry after that movie to go build furniture because he felt like he would find greater peace and serenity doing that. Mm-hmm. And when I was back in my phase of this is everything, I was like, oh my gosh, he could have been so big. How could he have walked away?
Right.
30 years later, I'm like, that guy was the smartest guy on the planet because he probably is much happier, mentally healthy. I'll tell you, the bigger the star we've worked with, the more miserable they've been. 100% across the board. Mm. No question about it. The most miserable people I know are A-list actors.
Yeah, because they have to constantly keep up a facade or a brand.
Yep.
They're not allowed to be human.
No.
Yeah.
Nope. And everybody wants a piece of them. And people say things to them all the time that, you know, whether it be in the tabloids or on the internet or Twitter. Twitter is where kindness goes to die. Let me just tell you that.
I thought that was YouTube.
All of it. Yeah. All of it. But like, you know, they're just miserable. And I think also it comes to like they've achieved it all. They've done it all. And then they're like, is this it? Now what?
Mm-hmm. So how do you stop that from happening? I feel this sense of like, all right, I guess I don't want to be an actor anymore. Like can we just cut cameras? We're all going to go to the bar.
If you want to be an actor, I'm not the person to talk to today.
Yeah. So so obviously it's really difficult. I believe you mentioned only 6% of actresses make it as an actor in this career that's so competitive. For those who are marching ahead and aspiring to be successful in this industry, what advice would you have for them as a whole? You
know? Well, I have.
What helpful story could you tell us, Kelly?
I sense you want me to tell the story. Okay. You know, I think one of the things that's always served my family well, and what I don't see a lot of happening with many, many actors that we've worked with is the concept of treating the janitor as if he's the CEO, because you never know when he might be. And I think a lot of times actors tend to be a little narcissistic, tend to be a little self-important, and really it's not even their fault. They're made to feel that way. There's a hierarchy on a set. The actor is the most important. Maybe the director is up there too.
Yep.
But I've always tried to treat everybody the same. And a quick story about how that served me well one time, or how that paid off, is years and years ago, both my daughter and I had the pleasure of working on the Hunger Games.
Okay.
And she played one of the tributes. She played one of the District 8 tributes. And actually, when she got that role, is one of the greatest missed YouTube video moments of all time, because she literally ran off of our front porch, threw herself in the front yard, and started rolling around. That's how excited she was. It reminded me of when the women's soccer team ran and ripped their shirt off.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, so she had a role in that, and I had a role in that, and we actually worked on the same day. But there was a set production assistant on that movie. And a production assistant, if you don't know the lingo, they're like the bottom of the totem pole. They're basically slave labor, on the set. And if anybody's going to catch any crap, it's going to be them. And so a lot of people don't treat them very well. Do you know what I'm saying? And so I always made a point to learn all of their names and make sure my kids knew all of their names. And there was this one production assistant on the Hunger Games, and we kind of got to be friends with her. And then I worked on another project a year later and saw her again. And she was then working in the office, the production office. And I'm like, look at you moving up in the world. And she said, yeah, I really want to produce one day. And I said, that's amazing. And I started, what was normal to me, I started asking her questions about that. I started saying, well, what do you want to produce? And that's amazing. We need more women producers. And we had a conversation, and and we worked with her a couple other times, and she kept moving up that ladder. So about a year ago, I get a call from my agent, and they're like, okay, you're booked for 2 days on this movie. And I said, I don't think I auditioned for that movie. And they're like, no, this was a direct offer. They had a role come up at the last minute. They don't have time to do a casting. The producer knows you and just reached out and offered you the job. And I was like, well, who? What's her name? I look her up, and here it's that production assistant from the Hunger Games that was actually producing a movie. And I truly believe it's because, I asked her questions about herself. And so many people don't do that.
You invested in the relationship.
Yeah, they don't. Like most actors are really good at talking about themselves, but they're not really that great at asking other people about themselves. And so that's just one of the principles I've always taught my children. And I think it served them really well to actually just be a blessing to people. And who knows, I'm not saying just do that so that it'll pan out someday.
Right.
It's just a good thing to do.
Right.
But it could.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's a really strong point you're making, because ultimately this PA that went on to become a producer, and you got this direct, what'd you call it, a direct
booking.
Call, direct booking?
Yeah.
Well, none of that would have happened if it hadn't been for that sort of spirit of humility that you carried through to your work. And I think that can only come from a place of health as an actor. And so what would you say for you has been how you've been able to maintain that, or how can actors and actresses maintain a healthy balance as they pursue their career?
Well, first of all, I think that there's a lot of emotionally unhealthy people in the arts in general. And because as a culture, we tend to worship artists. We tend to worship actors, athletes, musicians.
And artists tend to worship their craft.
And because they like the feeling of being worshipped.
Because people are worshiping them.
Right. And humans are not created to be worshipped. We don't handle it well. And so what happens is you end up with a people group that are very narcissistic and emotionally unhealthy. And I wanted to be able to be in the industry without being emotionally unhealthy. It's one of the reasons why we stayed in Atlanta when we probably had the right to move to Los Angeles and really try to grab for that brass ring,
Right.
Because I knew that if I did that, I think my children would have suffered emotionally, because when you're out in Hollywood, that's all there is out there. And if you're not succeeding in that, it's very easy to feel like your life doesn't matter. And so I wanted them to be in a place where most people weren't doing that and have a normal life so that
Be grounded,
they
right?
stay grounded. Yes. So there was this thing where I've spent their entire life trying to balance them between narcissistic megalomania and crack addicted depression.
Yeah.
And trying to stay right in the middle. And that was true for me too. Because it's so easy, no matter what you're pursuing, no matter what career you're in, whether you're an athlete, an artist, an editor, a director of photography, a painter, or a business person, to place your worth and your value on how successful you're being at those things. And the further along we got in the industry, the more I realized, you know what? Really all that matters is my family and my close friends that know me. Like if I have them, I can be okay.
Like faith, family, friends.
Faith, family, friends. And also I actually accidentally this was something that was so huge to me, and it was accidental, and I think it was a God thing. I accidentally started a business 4 years ago that is outside the realm of anything to do with entertainment. Okay. And that's a whole other story that I won't get into. But as I began to build that business, I started finding joy, satisfaction, contentment, and success in something other than Hollywood. And I found myself enjoying that more than Hollywood. And for the very first time, I was like, I don't have to be just that. I can be this too.
Yeah.
And I can be a writer, I can be an entrepreneur, and I can be an actress. And there was this fear before that if I left, if I did anything other than act, I was a quitter. And I didn't want to be a quitter. I'm a 3 on the Enneagram. We don't quit things. Okay. And so I didn't want to quit, but it wasn't bringing me the joy that I hoped that it would. It wasn't filling that God-shaped void. And this I started to realize that God wanted me to be over here and do this, but not leave this, but do this too. And ironically, I worked more as an actress in 2019 than I did in 2017 and 18 combined. I mean, I had a great year.
Very freeing.
It was so freeing. And I think it's because also the universe senses desperation. And when all your eggs are in one basket, it sort of knows that you're desperate and it doesn't reward it. But when you're like, whatever. And I would go into auditions and be like, cast me, don't cast me. I don't care. I've got this and it's actually paying me more than you are. So, and I think
on the inside,
on the inside and the outside.
Yeah.
And so I think they sense that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden they want you. It's like the abusive spouse. Reels you back in.
Don't need to. Yeah.
So I would say to any artist, be more than just that. Do some other things. Find some other things you're interested in.
Multiple streams of income.
I mean, that's just smart. Dave Ramsey says that the smartest thing you can do is have multiple streams of income, and one of them should be passive or residual. And we've done that. And I tell you what, when COVID came around, Hollywood shut down. It shut down completely. Nobody was working. And all of my actor, artist, musician friends were in a panic and really struggling. And because I had built up this other stream of income over here, I didn't worry one bit.
You were doing great.
I was doing great. It was actually a nice little sabbatical. So
you're going to get back into it and be healthier than ever.
Yeah. So realizing that, and now what it's allowed me to do is like, not turn myself into a pretzel for every little opportunity that comes my way. I turned down an opportunity the other day because it just wasn't speaking to me, Kevin. I was just like, I just don't want to do that one. And I don't have to. And it was great. It was great. So I would definitely say diversify yourself. And that will also inform your art, because you're only as good of an artist as you are a diverse person, especially with acting. And now I've gotten back to acting for me.
So I'm going to be like, so when's your first book come out? No, you're a writer too.
I am a writer. Oh my gosh, writing a book is really hard, but I have so many stories.
Yeah.
So many stories to tell.
Have the Kelly Collins Lentz coffee table book.
Yeah.
Stories I've learned while in the makeup chair. That needs to be the title.
From The Walking Dead to Walking Away.
Yes.
I don't know. So, just life. And the main lesson is that a lot of people, I think that actors have this glamorous life, that it's all fun and red carpets and gowns and hair and makeup followers and adoration. And it's a lot of not that. It's a lot of anxiety. It's a lot of fear. It's a lot of, it can be a lot of depression. When we were in Budapest for 6 months, it was a lot of lonely. And so sometimes the price you have to pay to get all of those things, and I'm not saying we haven't had some really exciting, very cool experiences.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the price is higher than I thought it would be. And it has caused me to really just appreciate my at-home time, my family time, where I can just be me with, PJs on, binge watching Cobra Kai.
Wow, you just leveled up.
I mean,
come on. Are you on Cobra Kai?
I have auditioned for Cobra Kai once, didn't get the part, but I'm determined. Ralph Macchio.
You're gonna be Johnny's sister.
William Zabka, Billy Zabka. You need me. Mm-hmm. I would like to be Ralph Macchio. I would like to be Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence's therapist, and they don't know they have the same therapist. That's what I would like.
That would be pretty stinking cool.
Yeah.
That actually is a really good idea.
It is.
Although Johnny would never go to a therapist.
But if he did, would it not be the best?
Now, if he did something illegal, like he whooped some guy and you had to go to court, anger management, whatever part of that was therapy.
Yes.
He had to go to, but here's LaRusso just walking out as he's walking in. And they're like, what the?
Yeah. He was like, I don't want to get in touch with my feelings.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So,
all right, I like where this is going.
I like that idea. YouTube Bread? Call me.
I think it's YouTube TV now.
Oh, sorry. Anyway, so that's just diversifying myself as a human and being okay with setting boundaries for myself, I think is super important as an artist. And also realizing that...
Boundaries, that's a big topic.
It's a big topic. That you're not... I just want to say to some actors that I work with, you're playing pretend. You're not out there curing cancer.
Relax. Yeah,
say
that to all the Twitter followers too.
Not
right?
that great. Not that great.
Well, I can't even say it. The Twitter trolls.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, I've worked with some really wonderful actors too. Just most of them are not.
I know, that's a whole other show. Stay tuned for episode 2 with Kelly when we dive deep on all the grit with Matthew McConaughey. And
the top 10
and how does he get that hair? Yeah.
Top 10 worst actors I've ever worked with. One of the things that I've just really found so interesting is when my daughter left Hollywood and now she's in law school, she's happier than I've ever seen her. My son, Matt, who is probably arguably, he has landed more projects than any of us and has worked all the way since he was 4 years old and has been really successful. We decided to send him to Auburn because Auburn has always also been a passion of his. It's a beloved place to him. And really, there's only one time.
Like War Eagle, Auburn.
Yes.
Okay.
There's only one time that you can be a college student from 18 to 22. Right. And that's when you're 18 to 22.
How old is he now?
He's 19.
19, so he's sophomore.
No, he's a freshman.
Oh.
And he just turned 19. So we sent him there. And he's still auditioning and everything, but we wanted him to have that life experience. And I'm telling you what, never in my life have I seen that kid have more fun. He is so happy and having so much fun. And
are you saying college is all about fun, Kelly?
I am. For us, it is. For us. Because a lot of people, for us, they're like, well, what do you need to go to college for? You're already doing.
Yeah.
You don't need a degree to do what you're doing, first of all, and you're already doing it.
Yeah.
Literally, I'm sending him there to have a real life experience. So he's already in a fraternity. I mean, he's just having the best time. And it's like, wow, I've never seen you this happy on a film set. Although he would tell you, no, I really love that. But it's just it's a more carefree thing. And it's making me realize there is more to life than what our main identity is.
Yeah.
And why not get out and explore it a little bit? On the other hand, my daughter Madison lives in Los Angeles. She's working on a show for Amazon called Bosch, about to go into her 7th season. Loves it. Loves Los Angeles. Loves that life. So it's all about you finding your own way and your own path. So.
Okay, so in kind of just looking back over our talk, I know we've been going for a while now. We, as an actor, how to get started. It's, regional. Look at regional. What you call it? Regional
markets.
Regional markets. Get an agent that doesn't charge you.
Right.
Get good before you do any of that. Another finger over here. Get good. Okay, and then
make sure you're not a crazy stage mom pushing your child into it.
Make sure your child wants to do it.
Yes.
And
if they want to quit, let them.
Yes, and be with proper expectations that it's going to be 50 rejections to every one yes on average. Sure. Only 6% of people make it
for really dumb reasons.
Yes, exactly.
Like hair color, skin color, or you remind them the director of his ex-wife.
Yeah, just crazy stuff,
stupid stuff,
and then be healthy through it, emotionally and physically, and have other things that you do, and don't adopt the mindset that this is what life is all about, and stay grounded. And anything else you want to kind of add on?
Fame does not equal happiness.
You're right. Yeah.
That most people I know that have fame actually experience the emotion of happiness and joy less than someone who lives in Alpharetta, Georgia, and has a regular job.
There's a story about Tom Shadyac, who's the director of Ace Ventura and Evan Almighty. About how he would drive down the streets of Beverly Hills when he was growing up and see the big mansion and want that mansion or want that house. And one day I'm going to live in the house like that, et cetera, et cetera. And eventually he directs Ace Ventura and Ace Ventura 2 and Evan Almighty, and somewhere along the way he attained that, and suddenly, of course, found himself inside the house and the most incredible empty feeling washing over him, the reality that this is not what I thought it would be. And kind of abandoned all of that, went and bought barely a house that's just a small little ranch, and bicycles to the university that he teaches at now, and made a movie called Happiness or something. I don't remember what it's called, but it's a film about this lie, in the industry and so forth. So that's who comes up for me when you're talking about that, because it is so true.
And I think that can be applied to any time you try to fill the void in your life with anything other than God and a spiritual connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't have to be just actors and directors. It could be anybody.
Okay, little known fact. Speaking of working in the industry and getting your chops and all that, I was an extra in The Blind Side.
I have a Blind Side story.
Really?
I do.
Well, I was working at a church many moons ago, and they leased their parking lot out to the cast of to the production. And the casting director went to this Florida State University where I went. And so I was put in touch with her. We're like, hey, Florida State, go Seminoles. Hey, you want to be in the movie? Yeah, well, here's some scenes. What do you want? I'm like, oh, bookstore. I think I'll have more of a chance to get seen in a bookstore than a restaurant. And there's all these tables. I'm going to be in the bookstore. And then it's funny enough, I'm rocking and rolling in my background acting skills, looking for those books like I'm like a pro. While Sandra, something
like that.
While Sandra walks up the stairs, it was a great 5 seconds.
Amazing.
Yeah, my sister saw me in the theater, so it was worth it. And Sandra got an Oscar for that film, which one of those moments. But what's your story?
Well,
and I do want to know, is she cool? Because I like Sandra.
She was very nice. I would say that I shared the screen with her, but when you hear the story, you'll realize why I did not. So I auditioned for The Blind Side. I auditioned for this role, and I didn't get that role. But the casting director for that movie is we go way, way back, and he's always been a fan and supporter of not only just me, but my children. And so he called my agent and was like, listen, Kelly's not going to get that role, but there's this other role that's come up, and I need somebody that's good at improvisation And because there's this scene at the concession stand at the volleyball game where Sandra and her friend are just chit-chatting, and I just need somebody that'll be able to do that. And I'll get Kelly double scale, which is double the normal amount of pay that you normally would get. And I said, heck yes, that would be a great moment for my little demo reel, little tete-a-tete with Sandra Bullock.
Right.
So I go to the wardrobe fitting, and at the wardrobe fitting, they have me trying on like an outfit that like a concession stand worker might wear, like green polo shirt, khaki pants sort of thing. And I said, okay, well, maybe her friend is like the head of the PTA, and she's like, it's her turn to like, you know, work behind the popcorn stand at the volleyball game, and Sandra comes up and they chat. But I emailed the casting director. I'm like, hey, Mark, are you sure that this is the right wardrobe for me? Like, am I supposed to be the worker? Am I supposed to be a friend that's with her? Never heard back. So I go to set that day. I put on my little green polo shirt, khaki, and then I go on set, and I meet this girl sitting there, and she looks really nervous. And I'm like, oh, hi, I'm Kelly. Who are you playing? And she's like, oh my gosh, I'm not even an actress. I'm just a friend of the Michael Owers family, and I'm here on set. And they realize they didn't cast a role they need, like a Sandra Bullock's friend. And so they just asked me to do it. And I'm like,
wait a minute.
What? And she's like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. I hope I do this. And so I had a choice. I had a choice right then. Do I go to the director and say, hey, I think you just gave my role to Susie, non-actress over here?
Yeah.
Or do I let her have the experience? And I knew that if I went to the director and said, I think I'm supposed to be that person, I might have just gotten like a little pat on the head, like, okay, sure, we'll look into it. And I really didn't want that to happen either.
Right.
So sure enough, all I did for about $2,000 for that day was filled a thing of popcorn, turned around and handed it to her, and this girl that did not know how to act was so nervous, could not get any lines out.
Does this scene even make it into the movie?
And the whole scene was cut.
Yep. Nope.
But I still get residuals to this day.
Do you?
I do.
Wow.
But I have no moment with Sandra Bullock on my demo reel.
I can loan you mine.
That's a micro. That's a That's a microcosm of life in Hollywood. Constant disappointment.
Yeah. Constant cutting room floor.
Constant. I've made it. Oh, no, I haven't.
Well, with that, cheers. Anything else? Yes. Anything else you want to add to the person watching? Actress, actor, extraordinaire, or otherwise, aspiring entrepreneur, writer.
Okay, I have 2 pieces of info that have served me well. 2 tips. 1, you can't just change your life. You change your habits, and your habits change your life. So if you want to be an actor, an artist, or anything, what are you doing each and every day when it's not really necessary to prepare for that opportunity? It's much better to prepare for an opportunity that isn't there than to meet opportunity unprepared. So are you working at it every single day? That would be my first piece of advice. My second one is always listen to the still small voice, that voice in your head that sometimes tells you to go north when you think you should be going south. I've never regretted doing that. That's what led me to Orlando, actually. I didn't really want to go there. But had I not listened to that still small voice and like, just go, just take this opportunity, I never, ever would have found that magical secret backdoor into the industry that I found. And I've had maybe 2 or 3 still small voice sonic booms in my life. And there has always been a reason. So if you hear that voice in your head, don't discount it easily.
Would you say it's in your head or in your gut?
I mean, it's both.
It's somewhere where the nerves are. Yeah.
It just radiates around.
Well, with that, thank you so much for being here. This has been awesome.
Thank you for
having me. And I
having
just
me.
can't wait to have you back next time because I know there's going to be so many other stories we can unpack. I know
Got
you got a
million
lot
of
of them. I know they're all in there. We're going to bring them out. So until then, tell the people watching or people listening how they can get a hold of you if they'd like to follow you or otherwise.
You can follow me on Instagram.
Provided they're not a troll.
Right. Well, I'm used to trolls. Bring me your best shot. Life in the Honey Wagon is who I am on Instagram.
Right. That's a good handle.
Yes. Life in the Honey Wagon. I also have a blog of the same name, which is mainly for stage parents.
Is that a .com?
lifeinthehoneywagon.com.
Okay.
And you can follow me on Facebook at Kelly Collins Lentz.
Okay. Good. Well, with that, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And thank you guys for watching. Hit subscribe. We'll let you know when we got Kelly back on the show. Thank you guys again, and thank you.
Thank you for having me.
High five.